as we gather to pay final respects to Mrs. Selma Blitzstein, it's always difficult to have such a gathering in the month of Nisan. Nisan, as we know, is the month which we have the beautiful holiday of Passover. And this being a month of Jewish redemption, we're not supposed to mourn during this month, or we at least curtail our mourning in some way during this month. And it's traditional to not have full eulogies. But I would just like to make one basic point, which is that the reason why Nisan is a month of joy in the Jewish calendar is because it's the month of redemption. And there's something very striking about Mrs. Blitzstein leaving this world during this month. This is a person who, in the early years of her life, fought the fight with the Nazis. Maybe in a passive way. But her life was in danger numerous times. And, of course, anyone who lives during those days and those times fights the fight within their heart and mind for the rest of their life. Where are the Nazis now? Mrs. Blitzstein won. Mrs. Blitzstein left behind a beautiful family, and to be a person of such kind spirit, despite what she experienced in her own life, is truly a sign of victory. And in a sense, I think this gathering is of course sad as we say goodbye to a beloved friend and relative, but it also is an opportunity to celebrate a redemption over enemies. To ask her daughter Rose Elbaum to speak.
Selma Thaler Blitzstein, Shlima Bas Dovber Barachalea, Zichrono Livracha, was born in 1924 in the small village of Bermiana, Galicia, now Ukraine, on the shore of the Dniester River. She enjoyed a normal childhood until the Nazis, Yamach Shmam, came in and tore her world apart. She lost her parents and her brother Avraham Yehuda in the Shoah, but she had many stories to tell of the pre-war years. Her parents, one of only 4 Jewish families in town, had a general store in their home. Her father would buy milk from the local farmers, separate the cream, and make butter to sell. He would travel to Buchach to sell eggs. He was the representative of Baron Heidel, who owned the land in the area. In addition to the education she received in the local Greek Orthodox school, her father would go to the library in Yazlovitz to borrow books. The priest in town was a friend of the family and made sure that my mother did not participate in the religious portion of the curriculum. My mother was a talented artist in her youth. One day, the priest saw her drawing in class and confiscated her work to keep for himself because he liked it so much. All the families in town contributed to hiring a lehrer, or malamed, to teach the Jewish children. The malamed always stayed with my mother's family. Her father, who had served in the Austrian army in World War I, enjoyed a subscription to the Yiddish newspaper, and they owned a radio. Her mother was fluent in many languages. Although they were observant and never ate a broth on Pesach, they were also attuned to the modern world. My grandmother Rachalea had a reputation for being the best cook and baker in town. Even the priest would come to their home for her baked goods. My mother was an excellent student. She was the best cook and baker. Many of you have tasted her chicken soup, borscht, gefilte fish, halupchis, potato kugel, and lakshenkugel. And her fluten, strudel, rugelach, hamantaschen in both cookie and yeast dough, honey cake, pletzelach, cheese knishes, and sugar cookies. Saul says that he married me for my mother's cooking. I hope my cooking hasn't disappointed him too much. And she also had a green thumb. Mipri kapeha nata karem. From the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. Everyone who passed by her house always commented on the beauty of her flowers and plants. That trait seems to have passed me by. The families in town had a shochet who visited about once a month. Every year before Pesach, the family would wash down all the walls in the house, scrub the wooden table, pour boiling water on it, and cover it. Pesach was the time of year when they acquired new utensils to be used for the rest of the year. After the war, my mother found herself in Bindermichel, a DP camp near Linz, Austria. There she met my late father, Nathan, alav hashalom, a handsome survivor from Trochenbrod. My father worked behind the counter, dispensing food and supplies for the survivors. The other women complained because my father would always give my mother extra portions. They were married on Lag BaOmer 1946 by the son of the Charkover Rebbe, one of many survivor weddings held that day. My mother made her dress and veil from a pair of curtains. All the brides took turns sharing that same wedding dress. My parents emigrated to the United States with me, their infant daughter, and slowly built a life for themselves in Newark, New Jersey, Baltimore, and finally Washington, with the addition over the years of my brother Bernie and sister Anna. The strength she exhibited during the war manifested itself many times over the years. My parents were the original owners of their home in Camp Mill. My mother became very frustrated because the builder was not responding to her calls for repairs during the first year. She trekked up to their office at the corner of Lamberton and Arcola many times to no avail. Finally, one day, she told the receptionist that if the builder didn't send someone to make the repairs, she would come back with a gun. Needless to say, the repairman showed up that same day. She also was very kind. As a child, I remember her always putting coins into the tin cups of the blind men who sat in front of the department stores. Kappa parsola ani, v'yadeha shicha le'evyon. She spreads out her hand to the poor man, and she stretches her hand out to the needy. And she was very thoughtful and sensitive. Every Yom Kippur, she would light many Yartzeit candles, many more than I knew she needed. I once asked her why she lit so many candles, and she told me that she was lighting candles for people who perished in the war, but who had no one to light candles for them. And now, Baruch Hashem, my mother has proven to Hitler, Yamach Shmo, that he couldn't wipe out the Jewish people. She is joining my late father, who passed away 14 years ago on the third day of Pesach, also in Nisan. She leaves behind a legacy of 3 children, 9 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, and hopefully many more to come. She was a true Eshet Chayil. Tehi Zichra Baruch. May her memory be for a blessing.